Eastern on Fox. Check your local listings for the game in your area.
All right, would you like to lose weight, burn fat in as little time as possible? Go to frogfitness.com, also available on Amazon. Worst fun you've ever had. Doug Gottlieb joining me. He was on fire. Good stuff. You know, I figured out why I'm so tough on LiAngelo Ball. Christine's like, hey, you can't do that. And you guys are saying, hey, Colin, you're too crazy. You know what it is?
I'm saying you should just
I think get them out
expel all of them, though.
Well, I'm a minimalist. And you become, as a talk show host, your personality, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a minimalist. I don't like furniture in my house. I don't like extra stuff in my office. I'm a minimalist. You're not. You're always late to an airport. You share my office. You got crap everywhere. So you can deal with all this cluttering. I can't. So the minute anybody is in my life that's just a little bit driving me crazy, I just expel them from school.
Uh-oh. That means I'm going to be expelled from the school.
Okay. Let me segue into this. So the college football rankings come out last night. And I have one major problem I'll talk about next hour. I did love Ohio State and Auburn being elevated. The committee saying it's not a death sentence. If you schedule Oklahoma and lose, it's okay.
What about being embarrassed by Iowa on the road? That's okay for Ohio State?
At the end of the season, if they have multiple impressive wins, Wisconsin, Penn State, Michigan, and we're willing to schedule a tough game, I'm okay. What did you make of the rankings last night?
Well, the first thing is Dan Mullen could use a pair of these, and I don't mean decor, okay? If you watched Saturday night, I root for chaos because the entire system it should be an 18 playoff. It's too many games for a college kid. It'll screw up all of the non-conference bye games. But I root for chaos. And we had chaos if Dan Mullen, at home, Mississippi State's head coach, playing well the entire game, 4th and 3, on Alabama's 42, instead chooses to punt the football.
Yep.
Right? Like, you got 3 yards. What the hell have you been working on the whole year in terms of situational play calling if you can't get, or at least attempt to get 3 yards? They punted out of the end zone. So instead of 1st and 10 for Alabama from the 40 or 42, it's from the 20 more yards. You can still stop Alabama, which they were unable to do. They got the ball back and couldn't score. But you have, on your own home field, if you show a lack of aggressiveness, if you show a passiveness, and you could say, well, our defense was bull. We all knew what was happening. The second they punted that football, they waved the white flag, and they allowed Alabama up for air, and Alabama ran the ball right down their throat.
And because of that, now Alabama is undefeated, and you think it's kind of screwing with the rankings.
Completely. Now, look, I don't understand. Look, the committee can tell you all you want that we don't take last year into effect. But that's bull, because otherwise, why is Oklahoma ranked below Clemson? Oklahoma has the 2 most impressive road victories of the season.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State on the road and Ohio State on the road. Plus, they beat the hell out of TCU. And, yes, they lost to Iowa State. And the committee said, we're holding the Iowa State's decent, as opposed to Clemson, who lost their quarterback. They lost on the road to Syracuse. So I think that they're holding Clemson in high regard because everybody believes that Clemson has a ton of talent and is a good football team. But more than anything, because Clemson didn't Clemson last year and won a national title.
So you're saying basically they're giving Clemson credit for last year when they should not be ahead of Oklahoma.
Of Oklahoma. No, absolutely. Now, look, it'll all play out in the wash because Miami's going to play Clemson. Whoever wins that thing is going to go on. I think the biggest problem they're going to have is what happens if Alabama beats Auburn and then loses to Georgia in the SEC championship game. Then what?
If that's the big...
Then what?
Yeah.
Because Alabama is better than Georgia, even if they're not better than Georgia in the championship game.
Yes.
Do you then put Georgia and Alabama in which we all agree is a down year in the SEC?
Okay, so the Celtics winning streak, I said to start the show, you know a comic's good, not if he does a great 11-minute set. Go on to YouTube and watch his best work. If he's got like 40 great jokes, John Mulaney right now I think is the funniest guy in America as a stand-up comic, John Mulaney. He's got like 30 funny bits. Anybody can do an 11-minute set. That doesn't mean you don't lack talent, but I say if you want to be a star, if you want to be James Corden, or you want to be Colbert, you got to give me more than 11-minute bit. This is what I say about the NBA. You can go on a winning streak if you're well coached, Boston. If you have a young team with high energy, Boston, and you out-prepare, have a star, you can sneak into town. I'm not rested. You are, win out. Playoffs are different. equally rested? What are your layers? So Boston looks great in the regular season, but LeBron's going to face Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown for 2 weeks. They don't have layers. This winning streak by the Celtics is a bunch of hooey.
Well, listen, I'm not going to dispute that in a 7-game series, I would take the Cleveland Cavaliers because of the experience and depth of talent that the Cavs have on paper. But I talked to Brad Stevens about this last year when they had, remember, the Celtics last year had the best record in the Eastern Conference.
Yes.
And he said, like, look, we're going for it. And the reason is we know the Cavs are the favorite. The Cavs will probably beat us in the playoffs, which is ultimately what happened. But a culture of winning is what they're trying to establish.
Okay.
And you know what winning teams and winning streaks don't have? They don't have players-only meetings. They don't have infighting. They don't have leaks to the media that the coach doesn't. They don't have what's happening to Ben McAdoo.
Posting
with the right
pictures of Arthur.
Correct. With balled up fists. So you're not wrong in terms of the Cleveland Cavaliers on paper should be better, but they have to answer all these questions. They have the players-only meetings. They have to opine for Isaiah Thomas to somehow completely change their roster when he comes back, when he hasn't played a single second with this team, as opposed to Boston, who has 11 new players on their roster, is currently dominating the NBA, and they've done so with Kyrie playing with a broken face. Al Horford missed a couple of games, and playing with a couple of guys in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who most people thought were at least a year, if not 2 years away. It's impressive, and it's establishing a culture of winning, and that is going to help your prediction, your 180 prediction, that the Celtics are going to win for the next decade.
They are.
That culture is going to carry them in years to come.
Just not going to win this year.
Well, they'll win this year, but they're not going to win an NBA championship, unless, of course, the Cavs, who have older pieces, break down because of that age.
Okay, you know Oklahoma City well. Westbrook and Paul George and Carmelo. Now, I always feel like LeBron figures it out. I think Cleveland will figure out. They'll get Isaiah back, check back after the All-Star break. They'll be fine. Not title fine, but good enough to beat the Celtics fine. Does OKC figure it out 2.5 minutes?
I think they do. If you look back 2 years ago when Kevin Durant was last there, remember they had an up and down season that year.
Yeah.
And then they figured it out. They were up 3-1 on the Warriors, couldn't close them out. Durant leaves. I think Billy will figure it out. There's 2 underlying, or maybe 3 underlying issues here. One, their roster is built for a foregone era. Those are all ISO guys.
Yes.
And they're all 2-point shooters, not 3-point shooters.
This is a really key point, because those NBA playoff games, they come down to 3 points.
Well, I mean, listen, the NBA regular season games, teams are averaging 30 to 31 threes taken a game. The whole league has gone pace and space and playing small ball. They do have a small ball roster, but the core of what they want to do is Carmelo at the 4, Paul George at the 3, and Steven Adams at the 5. And then you have even Russell Westbrook. None of them are great 3-point shooters. And so they're built for a foregone era. The other part is, at some point, Carmelo Anthony's going to wake up and go, what the hell am I doing in Oklahoma City? And, oh, yeah, by the way, he's great as a front runner. When things are going well, Team USA basketball, he's awesome. But when he starts to get questioned over, why didn't you pass the ball? Why are you so ISO? Why haven't you guys evolved? That's when he struggled with the Knicks the past couple of years. That's when he struggled with the Nuggets. When things get tough and you have to answer tough questions and play more team-oriented basketball at both ends, that's what he's not great when the team is struggling. I think they figure it out, but they do have some inherent underlying issues, which I think will hold them back from figuring it out.
That was very good stuff. By the way, an NBA exec, 45 seconds, said to Chris Broussard they'd consider trading LeBron. Your response is?
I would consider it, but I would also consider firing everybody in the Cavs front office if you choose to bail on one more chance at a championship before he leaves. Like, you have to consider it, but it's usually a front office guy who says that usually has no chance of obtaining him. This happens before the NFL draft or the NBA. I don't like Carson Wentz at 4. You're crazy to take him. That's a guy who's selecting at 26 or 27, right?
By the way, LeBron said in the preseason, I'm going to get better at free throws. He's shooting 81%. That's what Wilt Chamberlain used to do. I'm going to lead the league in assists. And you'd be like, you're 7-1. And he led the league in assists.
No, listen, he's incredibly impressive, but I'm concerned about the age of that team and guys becoming role players who have never been role players in their life.
That's Christine's point. I think it's a good point. You can see on paper, hey, Derrick Rose played 9 minutes.
Derrick Rose hasn't played 9 minutes in his life. He hasn't taken 5 shots in his life. Since he was 8 or 9 years old, he's always been a star.
Good stuff.
That's hard to do.
All right, you guys once again teamed up on me. That's the way it always works on this show. I'm just got a shield here like Captain America trying to defend myself. Doug Gottlieb, listen to him on Fox Sports Radio in L.A. It's The Herd.